call the regular session of the Employee Council meeting Wednesday, May 12, 2021 at 10:06 a.m. to order. We're going to do roll call. Nina Williams present. Allison Williams present. Joe Ward present. Raul Villasenor present. Jay Ritchie present. Josh White present. Lorena Valdez present. Grace Wiggins present. Eva Millspaugh present. Joelle Landers
present.
The following items are for review and discussion. 1. Review and discussion of corrections and updates to the reviewed proposed policy amendments. 1. Definitions. 2. Appointment to city positions. 3. Evaluation of applicants. And 4. Basis for appointment or promotion. And we went through those last time, and so Joelle made the changes that we requested, I believe.
Yes.
And then if you want to take a moment and just, if you didn't have a chance to look over those real quick.
Nina, may I?
Yes.
On the first request, definitions, page 2 of 3, at the bottom, highlighted, I wanted to make sure that I got this verbiage accurately as to what was requested, because I was reading off like notes. And so if we would just double check and make sure that I did make the intended corrections there.
Does anybody have any comments, questions, or anything that you saw that you didn't want?
I did have one more
Yes.
one I would like clarification on. So it's on the back side of evaluation of applicants 1 of 2. And again, I have a highlighted line there. It's discussing assessment of applicants. And in regards to police and fire, they do a PT or a testing and written examination, etc. The line that I'm questioning is no assessments will be scheduled until the personnel director has approved the proposed plan. I guess in a certain extent, I mean, I work with the fire chief on testing. I work with the police chief on, you know, say changes to the PT, like we went to Cooper standard. I mean, I can leave that in if you feel that's necessary. It's one of those that almost makes me feel like there needs to be something written, and I need, you know, to acknowledge, sign it, date it, approve it. But a lot of times the tests and whatnot are fluid. They're not always the same. So I don't know. That one caught me.
Striking that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours changes.
Yeah.
Also depending on like the weather and the heat and everything like that, our time changes along with distance.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So I think that can be stricken.
Okay, thank you. And then the word substantially kind of I wanted to bring that one up for discussion. Candidates will be provided with substantially the same opportunity to demonstrate his or her skills and qualifications in an appropriate and relevant manner. I don't even know if that word needs to be there. Candidates will be provided with the same
I
opportunity.
don't think it needs to be though.
I mean, for example,
Appropriate and relevant seem to cover.
that's what I thought. And I mean, and the only example I can think of this for police PT, we went to Cooper Standards, which has times based on ages and points, and they are two different sets of numbers for male versus female. And so, I mean, that's already being done. So I didn't understand why that word was there.
Yeah, let's just strike that
Okay.
the sentence above.
Okay, thank you.
Is everybody okay with that? If you're not, speak now or forever hold your peace. Does anybody have concerns about what we already revised?
I have a comment. Going back to two and three on the emergency hire,
Yes.
I think it was just more grammatical, not grammatical, but punctual. On emergency hire, and then the interim assignments at 6 months, I think it should be a comma instead of an apostrophe. If I'm reading it correctly.
Oh, all right. Yep, I hear you. Thank you.
And on that same note, instead of using the number 6, I think you should write it out like it is in the sentence prior to it.
Yes,
Should be consistent.
consistent. Yes, I agree. Okay.
And just let me know when you think we can move on. If we can't, we'll stay on there. But I think we have reviewed and discussed, and her revisions were fine. Alright. So I'm going to move on to review and discussion of 2019 proposed policy amendments, light duty, and it'd be one of one. And this section, I'm assuming, is not in there at the present, so all of this is new language, new language to go in there.
I've got there on page 2, where it talks about the certified by licensed physician. You know, a lot of people go to nurse practitioners or I'm trying to get another definition of it. But maybe it could be, instead of a physician, I think that's only someone with a doctorate, isn't it? Like a primary health provider or something like
Yeah,
that.
some of them are nurse practitioners
Nurse
or
practitioners, yeah.
LPs or,
Is it medical professional? A term that I can research that and make sure that we get a term that's all encompassing.
yes.
And if I may, I think part of that might be, like if you're getting workers' comp or other things that outside of the city of Bisbee, there are legal parameters that it is the, your primary care physician that has to sign off on those things. So, while we might make the decision to broaden that, we shouldn't conflict with outside, issues.
I will cross-reference with FMLA and workers' comp, and short-term disability as well.
But they're gonna send you to the medical profession of their choice. It's not gonna, either it can be your primary or they'll send you somewhere else. So I think medical professional
Okay,
is good, but check with that.
okay.
Now, is this for like all city-wide employees? Is this gonna be something for that?
Yeah, we do need to add something for fire, correct?
But yeah, we don't have light duty, nor do we have light duty assignments.
Is there something referenced there in the MOU? I can't remember
No.
off the top of my
Not
head,
for
no?
light duty.
Okay, I will research that.
Yeah, they'll need to be included.
Richie, is there anything similar for the police department, police officers?
I don't know if we have a light duty post here or not, because we have dispatch and just records area, that's it.
Okay,
You know, as far as police duties, they can't do anything else on light duty besides something on that side of the building.
Yeah, we don't have anything at
There's
all.
really no specific position.
okay.
for light duty.
I will also check the police department handbook and see if there's not something in there as well.
And number 4, does it address that, saying, number 4, availability of light duty work?
I think we could say yes, however, I really do feel like it would be probably the safest
To have
to have it actually spelled out for police and fire, rather than rely on the word availability. So, just for protection of the employee and the city.
So on number 5, an employee may be required to submit a signed waiver.
Yeah, no,
I
it
think it
shouldn't,
should be shall. If you're gonna go on light duty, you're gonna have a doctor's note
Yes.
stating, a
Mhm.
doctor's order saying you cannot come to work.
or the
In order to
employee,
come back, you shall, it should read shall
And number
be
5
required to
also,
submit.
And it
Has
does say
position.
shall indeed to return. So yeah, they both should be shall.
Shall,
Maybe
okay.
one- Maybe one shall.
and number 5 also has the language, the physician, so if it's changed at the top to medical professional, it should be addressed there.
thank you.
As well as number 1.
Thank you. In C, it's right in the middle, continued inability of the employee to perform the essential work functions. I don't know if I like inability.
I was just gonna ask about that as well, because continued inability is so broad in terms of a timeline. Like, should there be a time definition as there have been in other places? Like review after 6 months, or, you know, every case would be
Mm-hmm.
different, but, and also, that inability to perform, I mean, that's inability to perform the essential
Mhm.
functions of their position.
I would think, rather than inability, continued restriction from your medical professional, or whatever word we decide to use there, might be a little more appropriate, because
Or just continued medical restrictions.
which continued medical restrictions which enable, and even that small change, no.
up with a different,
I think I just have to review that entirely.
and I mean, we could put a time frame on there, but I think 6 months is too long.
In the very beginning, it says reviewed at least every 90 days.
Right.
So we have a time frame there, but I just don't like the,
But it's very broad. What does
Mhm.
continued mean? 2 or 3 years? Or,
yes.
Well, you know, I think a lot of that will depend on what your function of the city is. You know,
Yeah.
you talk about a firefighter who is in a burning building, all of a sudden the building collapses, and he could be out for a year medically, and all of a sudden the burning said you can't come back, or, you know, he's a captain, now he's being demoted to lieutenant because he can't complete those functions due to an on-the-job injury. That's going a little broad, like, you know, police officer getting bit by someone getting shot in the line of duty or something like that, or even somebody who's in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
out here gets crushed by
Equipment.
heavy
Mhm.
equipment or something like that. There's a fine line when it comes to putting, we're gonna demote somebody
Yeah,
or
it
something
just-
like that. I don't like that verbiage.
I don't either.
Because
Okay.
under FMLA, they're covered anyway.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Long-term, short-term, whatever the case may be. So
I will-
that's probably
Can
something that
you
needs to
look
be-
at other,
Yes.
and then maybe ask the attorney if we can't find anything for
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, because
I don't like that either, that's.
I'm just going to put
That'd be
a,
like military leave, you know, somebody who's in service and all of a sudden they're being deployed for, you know, 3 years and now they come back.
And there are other, I mean, this isn't the only, if, you know, something awful happens, this isn't the only path forward to address, you know, if that person decides to go on disability or something else long-term. But it's good that it includes transfer to a classification for which the employee is qualified and is able to perform, so.
I mean, I agree with that transfer of classification, but the portion where it states demotion or dismissal, I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Those two words I don't agree with in that statement.
I will, yeah, because like I said, I didn't write or change anything on here. I wanted to keep it as it was previously, but I agree, I'm not comfortable with that verbiage. So I will do some work on that one.
Well, can I just say, if during the review, like the 90-day review, say all of that is taken into account, and if it's somebody that doesn't fall into any of those categories and they're just trying to stay on light duty, then we can dismiss them. But I think all of that stuff should be considered when it's reviewed for the employee.
Yeah, because you walk a real fine line if someone's on light duty and then you talk about wanting to dismiss them,
Right.
especially not knowing
Or
if,
just reclassify
Yeah.
them, or
Mhm.
transfer them.
Yeah.
Not dismiss them, but,
mm-hmm,
you know, if you get people that doesn't, you know, they stub their toe or something, and then
but
or
also,
something ridiculous like that, I don't know.
yeah,
Well, that's why you have to have that medical.
yes,
professional
Yeah. a
Sign off,
professional.
and then there could always be like if, getting reevaluated, if there's a time where like, all right, like, you need a reevaluation from a healthcare professional.
Right, yeah.
Well,
And
and
some-
that goes back to why you would have a physician, a doctor
Mhm.
sign off on it and not a nursing assistant or an
Right.
LPN. And so that's where that ground, you know, it's one or the other. Are you putting the weight on the physician rather than medical professional?
Mhm.
Because a physician, a doctor themselves will not sign off necessarily on something.
Something that's not.
Yeah.
So the weight of a licensed physician is taking that burden away from this other side.
Right,
I mean, if you wanna be really technical, just from experience, you have your home family health, they'll tell you one thing. Once you get into a specialist that specializes it, they'll tell you a whole different.
mm-hmm,
right.
And then their recommendations, the home health can be like, no, you need to be off. This one says, hey, no, you need physical therapy for
Mhm.
2 weeks and you're good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different.
there.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I sometimes think that too much wording, over, you know,
Right.
trying to address every possibility
It's just.
sometimes defeats the purpose. We can make the statement and make our point in a simplistic way where there's not all this room for interpretation. And that's personally how I lean. I sometimes think simplifying really wordy things is a benefit.
I think DOL has some, information that we have.
That's a good resource. Thank you, Grace.
On D, change the physician to medical professional. It's in the department head, a statement from the physician.
Yep, thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments regarding light duty? If you think of something after we have already gone, just email or call Joelle, and she can look that up for us, or see if we can add whatever it is, or delete whatever you don't want. All right, so we're gonna move on number 6, probation.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
On the very bottom, H, shall be subject to the 6-month probation period, and then a promoted employee may have 30 days to return. That 30 days is after the 6 months? 30 days from what? From the end of the 6-month probation period?
I would not think so. So that might need to be separated and identified as. No, because 6 months and 30 days is entirely, that's.
Maybe that needs to be I,
Mm-hmm.
and it needs to be,
Or 30 days from the beginning of
Yeah.
the promotion?
Mm-hmm. Start date of the promotion.
of the internal promotion. And it should say 30 days to return to their previous position, not return their previous position.
Okay, 2.
I think. Grace, what do you think?
Second.
Sounds like that's driving me nuts.
And I wanted to ask Richie, so the way I'm reading this for police officers, the 1 year of probation would not start until a candidate has completed the police academy and FTO.
No, but I would say from the police academy, from date of certification. So-
Date of certification,
Yeah,
I would like to
certification.
use that verbiage then, okay.
Yeah.
So, because being on probation, like in my case, when I came here, I was on probation for 6 months. 3 of those months were in the police academy.
Yeah,
So I actually only worked on duty basically as soon as I came off FTO,
Mhm.
I was pretty much off probation.
mm-hmm,
So it should be from date of certification.
okay. Thank you. Rel, do you have anything, do you notice anything that needs to be specified anymore for?
No, because once they're, their first hire date, that's when they get assigned their probationary test and
Okay.
everything, so that's.
Okay.
Alrighty, I think we're done with probationary, because everything else was there before. We just added for the public safety and then the internal hires. Alright, so we're gonna go on to alternative hiring. It should have been right after that one.
The alternative appointment?
Alternative appointments, yeah.
Yeah. At the top, it's in green, it says alt hiring.
question on D, the last sentence. The employee shall be entitled to a pay increase of not less than 5% over and above his or her present salary for the period of any such assignment. Is that, I saw in another section, now I don't know where, that similar language. Is that contingent upon the acting duties being in a position where the salary is higher than the current salary? Or is it across the board, say you're acting in a position that is lower salary base, but then you are entitled to 5% increase anyway? Or is it,
Is it because
is
of
it,
the additional work and stress? I mean, that's, yeah.
but is it connected to or contingent upon the position salary of the acting?
No, it's just of your present salary. So let's say Joelle wanted to be city clerk. It's a lateral change, but she would get 5% more for doing that job.
And
She wouldn't make, she probably makes more or less, I don't know, but it would just be 5% over what you are currently paid.
because those duties are in addition to your
regular
current
duties.
Okay,
duties.
so that's the clarification. The 5% is because you're doing additional
duties.
It is not based on the salary
Mhm.
of those duties.
Yeah.
And then, I don't wanna go through the whole thing, but, you know, his or her present salary, that could just be changed to their, an acknowledgement of non-binary gender, people.
That is something that will be either addressed as a whole in, I know the one that, the sample that we have from Cottonwood addresses pronouns. That, or, you know, before we put forth for legal approval everything, we would need to make sure that there was consistency with either there or, you know, whatever the choice is. So yes, that will definitely be
Yeah,
addressed.
I just wanted to point it out as an example, not say like, let's go through the whole thing.
So, my one question, I guess, I'm struggling with emergency appointments because there have been situations where positions have been vacated for whatever reason. Someone, say, goes from one department to another. Public Works, for example, they go from parks to a recycling position. And it's an emergency appointment. They're now doing a completely different set of job duties. So it almost is like, almost ties into that internal hire. I guess I just think I need to process on this one a little more. Because if we do have that internal posting available, then then my issue here with emergency appointment goes away. It's when we have internal employees that are going to another department, essentially taking a completely new job. Sometimes we do have to do that in an emergency situation, but I feel like this kind of ties the hands there. So again, I think depending on how, if we do get that, which is coming up shortly, where we can post jobs internally before we post to the public, then that would, again, negate that issue that I don't like there, so.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
If y'all are okay with that.
I'm just gonna put a question mark there, because
Yeah.
like I said, it just depends. Because, yeah, I don't want, otherwise the line, emergency appointments are not regular city employees.
That's
Well,
what I was just gonna ask
yeah,
about.
we have city employees who take on emergency, you know, it's an emergency hire, we put them in a department that has a greater need.
Yeah.
So, okay, then I'll pass on that one until we get further.
Does anybody have anything else they would like changed or mentioned that they, with wording or anything like that?
Well, that, what you were talking about, Joel, that follows directly into when I was at Pre-Mine and I came down, so that hits it right on the head.
Oh, yeah. There's many situations like that, so that's why I just, if we fix one, then we don't have to fix that one, but if we don't do this, then we do have to do that. Sorry.
That's true.
All right, I think we can move on to the next one, which would be, what were we just on?
Alternative
All right, thank
appointments.
you. I lost my place. Now we're gonna go to 8 volunteer. This section is to be determined in the thing. Is this what you did is what we do now, or was this what was already done?
This is what was done. I have not touched this.
My suggestion is, and if it's all right with y'all, Joelle does a very good job with the volunteers. I mean, she utilizes them, she gets the paperwork done, she does everything that she needs to do. So I'm okay with Joelle just revamping this to fit what you currently do, because I think it works, and it probably could work in the future, even if you were not the personnel director.
Yes, this is another example where, in my opinion, this is really overkill. I think we can really simplify this, and I just, unless, I mean, I were to consult with legal and for some reason this is necessary. Otherwise, yes, I think it can be a little streamlined, because essentially the volunteers go through the exact same process as an employee. We don't,
Differentiate.
skip anything.
No.
They get background, all of those,
Right.
application. So, yeah, okay.
I would check with legal to make sure,
Mhm.
but I think if we can streamline it and simplify it, it would be the best.
Okay.
Does anybody have any comments regarding it?
Well, under policy adoption effects, if you are changing language, volunteers will be screened just
Oh.
as employees. And then, and we, pre-pandemic had, 40 to 50 vetted volunteers. So we really do appreciate all of the work you do in getting our volunteers vetted. The new application that that encompasses all of this. And so the only thing I would say is to, take into consideration these new and better ways that we're doing this, and make sure that's reflected in this language. Simplified is great, but we do really appreciate the process. Because for many of us with departments, you might be working with children, or you might be working with confidential information and all of that, so and we really appreciate our volunteers.
Does anybody have anything they want to address in this section?
Not having read it completely, but is nepotism identified here?
In what's volunteers are by definition unpaid, so in the sense of preferential treatment for a volunteer, or?
Well, it's just the idea of that it be addressed in a certain degree as to how that person is going to be in the department, and, what they're gonna be doing, and how it relates to the end result of that volunteer position.
So like a declaration of familial relationships, or who they're reporting to?
Yeah, the influences, that they have.
I will definitely, that one's gonna take some research, but that's a good point and I wrote it down, so.
All right, we're gonna move on to item number 3, but I will wait a few minutes till the Jay and Raul come back. Well, I guess we can start with item number 3, discussion and direction of the step plan working document. I'd like to discuss that we put aside the step plan for right now. It's not, we are having difficulty, sorry Jay, so we're discussing and direction to staff regarding the step plan working document. My thought is to put it aside for right now and let's work on something else because, it's just not, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for. It's just not working out like we wanted it to, because I can't think of a better word. So I think that we should concentrate more on something that we can actually move forward. But at this time, there's no way to move forward with that step plan. The city still hasn't changed how much money they're spending or how much money we're gonna get. That hasn't changed. And we still, we all do more with less, so we wish it was different, but at this time, we just can't move forward on that plan. So, what are your thoughts?
I agree.
So put it on hold, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For, shall we say, revisit in 6 months, or,
No, I think I'd rather let's just hold off on it. And if it comes to where, because in 6 months, who knows if we'll all still be at the table. In a year, who knows if we'll all still be at the table. There could be new members or new, and they'll want to change that too. So I think unless the city is in a better financial situation, the step plan is just not going to work. That would be my thought, but I'm open to whatever you all want to do. But I just think until that situation is changing, then there's nothing.
I would hate to give up on the work of it and the idea of it, because I think that the focus and direction of energy and, resources, meaning all of the hard work, but not just of you, of the council, that part of the process is the desire to create change, then moves that process forward to implement change. And so while I totally understand everything that you're saying and even agree to some, in a very realistic way, I do not want to give up on the impetus and the direction of this council to address these inequities. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Jay?
When we talk about budget, and when we started this venture a year ago, we had talked about there were certain people that needed to be in the room when we started this venture, which had to do with the finance side of this city, which weren't in these meetings, listening to the discussions that all of us are having, bringing all this stuff to the forefront. Everybody here put forth ideas and efforts, Joelle especially, and it's us putting it to the side for a year, or whatever the case may be, until the city's where it should be. doesn't mean the plan's not there. We have a format here. We're just, it's on hold. Because can we physically accomplish the actual goal with this, where we're sitting at financially within the city? When we take a look at, when I started with this department, there was this so-called pay raise at 5% that everybody got if as long as you were here over a year, which was supposed to be a cost of living increase, which should have been across the board. And then we talked about people coming in, the pay didn't go up. Police officers still started at $16.92 an hour, even though everybody else was $1 more. So that wasn't addressed. That would move any guy, any position here. So we couldn't even accomplish that at the time. So like right now, there's guys here, I make $1 more than the rest of the guys that are here, me and Jake, because we finally got that additional 5% a year later. But in reality, it's still not an even keel when it comes to it. So I think holding off is a good idea. We look at it a year or two down the road, once we start bringing some commerce or whatever else we need to bring to the city, to start bringing revenue, because that's the issue.
Right. And I mean, the STEP plan is a working document. It has been, we have tried. We came up with 2 solutions, I think it was. We had an A and a B, and it just is not going to work out. So it's not like I don't want to ever bring this back up if I'm the chair or whoever's the chair. I just think that we need to focus on the things that right now that we can change, because that's not, what's going on financially with the city is not going to change in a year. Yes, ma'am.
I also wanted to mention that in that process of working on the STEP plan, there were pieces of that that were really valuable that we made an incredible amount of headway on. And so while the suggestion is to set the STEP plan aside, that is simply talking about the STEP plan, not the grades, not longevity, not anything like that. So I will say that it was very, very interesting to actually start putting people in that STEP plan and to see how it would take more time, more research and whatnot, because implementing that plan, having not started from day one with that plan, will, no matter what we do, how we look at it, will hurt employees. And I just feel like that is never the intention, and I never want to do that. And I could not, at this point in time, wrap my head around how we can implement a plan like that without being good for some and crappy for others. And I think that just, I mean, granted, I know the world's not fair, I understand that, but still, in the bigger picture, I think we can focus energy and still really make a difference. We can perhaps, take some steps in the right direction. I believe, what meeting was it? It was at a council meeting that it was brought up, 50-cent increase upon completion of probation was a policy at one point in time. I'm not aware of that, and I did get some positive encouragement in regards to looking at that and really trying to figure out what that was, where it was, and getting it re-implemented again. So while the suggestion is to set it aside, I just want, the understanding to be, we're not setting aside trying to do something, do as much as we possibly can for the employees, even if it's, a case of Rockstar energy drinks. I mean, we're still trying so hard, and that is still the intent, and we're still moving in that direction. So I still feel it's positive. We just, talk about a barrel of monkeys. That STEP plan was,
And that was my point, is to
Yeah.
continue the emphasis of moving forward towards equity for our employees in terms of creating job retention and fairness. So move that we table the step plan.
Yeah, we don't need to vote. I don't know.
No.
So, I think you got the general
Okay.
gist of that. All right, that being said, we're gonna go on to item number 4, discussion and direction of the current longevity pay compensation. Now, since we are unable to do the step plan, we had brought this forward, and we think that, well, I think, that if we were to put this to mayor and council, we probably could get this passed. So it's the last page in the thing. So I would like to see us put forward a motion to mayor and council to recommend that they bump it up 1% for each one of those. So at 5 years, you get 3%. At 10 years, you get 4, 15 you would get 5, 20 you would get 6, and 25 you would get 7. I think at this time, this is probably all we could hope for. But I'm open to suggestions. But I think that if we come at it in a very methodical way, it can be changed.
I like that, Mike.
Something,
Kennedy.
yeah.
I said might can be. I didn't say they would. Because they're ultimately the decision makers. But I feel like it's something that if we were to bring forward, they have to see for what it is. That we've tried the step plan way, we've tried other ways, that maybe this is something we can give to retain our employees in those years. But that's my suggestion. We don't have to do it.
Is this happening?
Yes. Yes, when,
'Cause before it used to be depending on the supervisor. So.
really,
Understood, yeah.
I am not aware,
I mean, it's not in here, but that's the way they were doing it. Doesn't
Oh.
mean that that's the way it should have been done.
I think that's kind of like that 50 cent
Yeah.
for completion of probation.
Some did it, some didn't.
yeah,
Some did it on the sly, some did it on the front
Exactly.
board.
When I was hired, I was told that was going to happen, and it never was implemented, and it was a supervisory decision for
That-
2 employees. But we were told when we were hired by personnel that that would happen, and then it did not.
Didn't,
It was similar with me, but the personnel people, when I got hired, like immediately left.
I mean, as far as I read it and as far as my, understanding with multiple city managers now, longevity is longevity. It's not up for,
Because that would make it very.
exactly, so.
Yeah.
And the only other, I like the idea of 1% because I do think it, in a financial sense, it's not gonna have the dramatic impact of that step plan. However, it does show the employees, we're making the effort. We want to acknowledge that this document is, over 12 years old now, maybe even more. And, we can work on that. My other thought that I just wanted to throw out there for you to contemplate, it's kind of like an either or thing. I like the 50 cent completion of probation, and it sounds like that would be supported. In the event that maybe that wasn't supported, I didn't know if anyone thought it would be helpful, beneficial to add a longevity at, say, 2 years, and then put that 2-year longevity at 2%. I don't know what would be more helpful to the employee. I would probably think 50 cents kind of has that instant gratification. I get that at my end of my probation. There's some encouragement to do well and complete your probation. So that was just an idea.
Any incentive is a form of retention.
True.
Yes.
I think the only hardship as far as the guys that I can see over here is that they're at the bare minimum right now. So if we do the 50 cents afterwards, then people that have been here 3-4 years and got the 2%, then they got a brand new guy that's been a year and then they're already ahead of them. And I know it's hard to everything, but I know that'll cause, you know, a lot of times some of those guys have been here 3-4 years back, now I'm out and go somewhere else, and, you know, and so just a thought.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
That's gonna.
I'm not gonna stop that, no matter what. I mean, unfortunately, if that is where the decision lies, I'm, you
The only
know.
thing is the medics, because once we get down a certain amount of medics, then our CON can be
Mhm.
up for drafts, and then we can lose the whole medical in between.
So, I understand. I mean, and unfortunately, very similar to the step plan, yes, instituting this 50 cent at the completion of probation is going to pose the question, do we back pay it? And majority of the time, that answer is no. It's moving forward. And so there is, okay, are we willing to accept that? It's something. While I may not directly benefit from it,
It is.
I know that people coming in will benefit from it, and then for the greater good, are we helping to retain employees? So,
And no matter what, just like with the step plan, we will always be faced with this 10 years from now, 10 months from now, whatever it is. So it is a sad thing that the implementation was stopped, kind of just somehow. And especially for those who expected it or were told that was gonna happen and it never did. Again, looking at existing employees in positions who are in that situation, is there a way to do a transition? Is it people hired within the last year? Is it, or 2 years? Is it adding a completion of 2 years, or I would almost suggest 3 years, get that 2%, 3, 5, 10. You know, I think it's when somebody has committed to 3 years in a position, you can feel really pretty strong about that. 3 years is usually that time people either stay or go. 2 years, they're still deciding.
okay.
But I do think long-term, we need to look at this compensation and again, see if we can address a transition for the people who exist here today, who haven't benefited from that.
Joelle, when you move this to the civil service, can you do up two, one with the 50 cent and one with the 3-year, completion of 3 years?
Thanks. Yeah, that's a
But
good
do one with just the 50 cent after probation ends,
Mhm.
and then add the other one at the 3 years at 1%.
And
1% or 2?
Or 2%, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
With,
I knew what I was trying to say, I was
with
looking down.
upping all of these numbers by 1%, as you said.
Okay.
And, you know, I think it should be acknowledged that that 50% raise compensation after 6 months is the almost defense against the low hourly starting. And so you start at this low, much lower hourly, knowing you're gonna get that 50 cents. But then when that never happens, you're just continuing that below average, lower starting wage. So I think it should be looked at in that regard.
Is everybody okay with that? I mean, it's not gonna be perfect, it really isn't. But it's at least something we can say, hey, this is, you know, we tried the step plan, it just had too many problems, some were being fair, others would not be. That maybe doing this could actually work, I don't know.
It will be helpful.
Yeah.
And it will go to, I will, you know, get everything together, present to the Civil Service Commission. I will get their feedback on it. And then at that point in time, I would probably want to do a special session or a work session with employee council before we take it to council. So again, it's a process, but the process is really valuable and really helpful, so.
So is everybody in agreement to move forward on that direction?
Yes.
Is there anybody opposed to doing that? No? Okay. So we're gonna move on to item number 5, discussion and direction of the grade plan and possible expansion of job descriptions. Thank you. I was like, was I supposed to do this one?
It just, it occurred to me that when I started this process, I worked on the positions we had filled at the time. And there's a lot of job descriptions in there that might not be being used right now. So my question and what I was wanting to just bring up for discussion, I like the grade plan. I like the fact that we have worked on it, we've used good resources and not spent thousands of dollars for some sort of, evaluation, whatever it's been done before in the past where we spend thousands of dollars on something. They come back with this plan of, okay, these are where these positions should be and this is where the pay should be, and it gets looked at and said, well, we can't afford to do that, and we move on. Well, we just spent how much money on the study? And so I really loved the idea that we were using good documentation and not having to go out and pay money for something that we cannot afford to implement. But what remains is that there are positions that have not been evaluated. And would it be worth our time? It would have to almost be, I would think, like a one-on-one or, a few at a time per department. I don't think it's going to be quick, but I always like to have the opinion and influence of like Josh and Lorena for the public works positions. I might not be able to fully understand what a position does in order to, get a comparable number there. So I just wanted to put that out there that this grade plan is great. I really like it. It's really helpful. But do we want to expand it and then go forward and complete the remaining steps, which is, I know it's been taken to civil service to look at, but I do eventually want to take this to council so that we would then address the problem that Richie has mentioned multiple times, that we need to implement this with our job descriptions day one when someone comes in, not, working towards this constantly. And so it's a big one. It's a big project along with, the personnel rules and regulations. But again, I just wanted to put that out there. Maybe something we want to work on in the future, or how we might want to consider going about that.
I'd like to do it simultaneously with the personnel rules and regulations, but that's my opinion. Like, just take one department at a time.
At a time? Okay.
We can start with the smaller ones, or however is what I'm saying, but I think it can be done over the next year.
So is that to move the grades around, or?
No, not move the grades.
Not move the grades, but to have to have the starting point and then the point rating. Because I'm not even sure, some of them don't even have grades, do they?
No, and that's my whole point is
Right.
that, there's executive assistant. There's, that would be for city or for the city manager. There's other positions in community development that are not filled right now. But do we need to evaluate them and get them on here? Do we need to establish the same grades for every position that we have in the city? Or do we even need to review all of those positions and say, what ones should we evaluate and put on here, and what ones are maybe obsolete?
By department.
By department.
I think
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's really a good
Okay.
idea.
The reason why I asked, because we had changed it in the initial one, but the fire for the fire lieutenant, EMT, and paramedic.
Oh, they're
We
supposed
got
to be different.
Yeah, needed to be separate. And then the same thing
Oh,
with the
yeah.
captain and the EMT, because the responsibilities and
Yeah.
liability is way greater.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna circle that.
Sorry about that.
That may be a typo, so I will look into that.
And also department priorities change, making some positions, it's not just about the budget that we don't have the money to fill them, it's that the priorities have
Mhm.
shifted into a new direction, like we're working on our strategic plan, and, you know, that strategic plan should be defining what direction that department is going.
Well, I think too, if we clean up the job descriptions, we may find that, I'm just an example, in the office that I'm in, Ashley and I are the only two in there. There used to be 6 people, and they each did an individual job. So those 4 were let go and only 2 people stayed. Well, those jobs, what those people didn't go away, just the things, and maybe we can encompass it into 1 or 2 and not need to have 4 people, like
Mhm.
if you, in your department, do you know what I mean? Like, maybe we could, in the future, if we want $1 million or $10 million, we could add another person, but we don't need it to be for that certain
Mm-hmm.
position. We need it to be able to do those, like records or minutes or whatever, like all encompassing in one thing, like for an administrative assistant or an executive assistant.
Yeah.
I hope I explained that correctly.
Mhm.
Okay. I know what I'm trying to say.
Jobs and duties have shifted, and so those old job positions might not necessarily be the ones that we fill.
Mm-hmm.
And does civil service have quorum currently?
Yes.
How many openings are there?
Mr. Pocken was the most recent addition, and now he's obviously not on civil service. So I believe there's gonna. Oh wait, I have my book.
I was gonna say, I don't know.
I think we have.
'Cause I can't remember if that's a 5 board member or a 7.
It's a 5-member. Quorum
So we
is
need
3.
Yeah.
We do have
Are you
one.
okay?
We have one vacant position.
Oh,
Mr. Pocken left a second vacant position, so
Yeah, you still have.
quorum would be
Yeah.
the 3 that we have remaining.
Yeah.
So, and one of which is Jennifer Graham, who's
Who used to be the
HR.
person.
Yeah, she was HR here. She's HR at the county, so a really wonderful resource there. Actually, all of them are.
well, and during the budget hearings, there was budgeted for a new position that we currently don't have a job description or title in the city.
The planner, yes.
So that would go.
That would
then
go,
to civil
mhm.
service, and
Yeah.
does that go to employee council too, or no? No.
I don't,
We don't necessarily
yeah, I
have
would,
anything to do with that. It can if we want to see them, but it's not like we can make a recommendation, because ultimately it's the civil service who's gonna recommend it to go toward to mayor and council, we or not.
Mhm.
Right, no, I mean just the job description.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't.
I could share
we can
it.
still share it, but we can't really do anything about
Yeah.
it. Even, I mean, there's no discussion to be had, is what I'm saying, but we can all look at them
For informational
for
purposes. Yeah.
information,
mhm.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll kind of
Okay.
work on that by department. Thank you.
All right, so item number 6, follow-up review and discussion of wellness funds from Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I would just like to give a shout out to Miss Joelle, who got that all situated, got them all done, and, you know, put them with everything. Kudos.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do that
I was.
for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm really hoping that next year we can move towards events or, you know, things where we can gather and share. I'm very excited to step in the right direction with open enrollment, that we get to have it outside at Higgins Park. So that gives me, you know, that gives me hope that we're moving in that direction, because there were fabulous ideas. I mean, we've had, as far as doing communal outdoor spaces, you know, for meetings, kind of like this. If we had a shaded area, we could do it outside. Christmas or holiday gatherings, Gym equipment, maybe something that, you know, if somebody wanted to do that while working. So there were, like I said, a lot of really neat ideas that were restricted by COVID. So I am looking forward, but I'm glad everyone appreciated it, and
Very
we
much so.
have it again next year. So that's exciting too.
So, yes, but without you, we would not have had that, so we appreciate it very much. Do you have any comments, Joelle, before I go on to the agenda items? Does anybody have any comments before we go on to future agenda items?
I'm just, also wanna just thank you, Joelle, for, all of your hard work, in the budget and representing the employees, in such a powerful manifestation of direct, support of the City of Bisbee employees. Thank you.
For agenda items for next meeting, Joelle, I'd like to bring 5 through 8 back for review and discussion with corrections and updates. This has nothing to do with our future meeting, but can 1 through 4 be given to civil service at their next meeting to review? And maybe we can get those 4 done before, you know, as we're going through. And then I'd like to do 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that would be harassment, whistleblower, PTO, and nepotism.
Yes.
The fun ones we left for last. I'd just like to have an update and discussion on the longevity pay compensation. Yesterday, English wasn't my first language.
Start again from the beginning. I was writing.
An
I'm sorry.
update and review on the longevity pay compensation the next time, because I'm going to ask you to move that forward to civil service at their next meeting. Sorry about that.
I will have a civil service meeting before we have another meeting.
Right.
So we're not supposed to discuss right now. I will.
State something, we just can't discuss it.
Okay, so I received the direction that was intended. I would like to put it together and take it to Civil Service Commission, and then after Civil Service Commission, I will bring their suggestions, comments to our next employee council meeting. So it'll be civil service, and then we'll bring it back.
And then one more thing, I'd like to have an updated review of the grade plan and the expansion of job descriptions. I kind of want to see if we can kind of set a timeline. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of figure out how we want to start first, and what we need to do going forward.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything else?
Does that PTO include EIB? That discussion that you put on for next meeting?
I believe PTO has to do with EIB.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's in the same section.
Good.
I think.
What are you up to?
9 through 12.
Yes.
I've always had an issue with the EIB.
Oh,
The way
okay.
it's set up, the way we deal with it here.
I'm curious. Okay.
So, but it's section 9 through 12 that we're going to get to. So
Okay.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting of employee council.
I'll have a second. Raul. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.